Good evening, everybody. This is our legislative advocacy community engagement meeting for October. We're going to jump right into our agenda. We have a pretty packed agenda for tonight. So the first item on our agenda was a review of the materials from the September legislative committee meeting from school boards. I did share this as a public document, so anybody who wants to see what was discussed at these meetings is able to see it. There wasn't a lot of new stuff because the legislators have been on break over the summer. There had been a discussion on the early childhood legislation. And then, one of the things that they were discussing was the IEP guidelines about providing for parents at least 2 business days beforehand information before their meeting so that they're going in aware of what's going to be discussed. There were 2 legislators there. I can look up their names, but they sort of shared their positions. Definitely, there's always that discussion about funding, which, is a never ending thing. I'm sensing a lot of frustration from other districts as well, like legislative districts, about how there's a lot of discussion of funding concerns, but, not a lot of action. Like there's a lot of proposals, like if you look on this bill search on the legislative website. So those were sort of the topics there. Did anyone see anything on those that like they felt is worth looking into a little bit deeper? If not, we can sort of move past that. They also did say there'll be a legislative panel at workshop. So I forget exactly who's going to be up there, but there's some question and answer period. So if there's any people who wanted to speak or ask questions, that's a good session to go to. Yeah, all right. So I'm going to move on just because we do have a fair amount to discuss if there's nothing else from there. So the next thing is finalizing the draft of the district advocacy calendar. So this is something that we had discussed last month, sort of just making sure we are knowing when we're supposed to do things as a board and as a district in terms of advocacy, because I feel like a lot of times, and I think Ms. Monroe, you sort of mentioned at the last meeting, whether it's the dates just become announced, which is something we really can't control, like when they had the Department of Education hearings all of a sudden last year. But when they have like the budget hearings, where we sort of know generally when they're going to come out and when it's going to be announced, being prepared in advance as a board in order to take action. So I had shared this as an executive attachment for us right now, and I figured once we finalize it, then we can share that with the public. So I can just read through it really quick, and if you have any feedback, let me know. So I said for January and February, it's reviewing the governor's State of the State address and proposed budget, meeting with our legislators to share the priorities for the upcoming year, and revising the district advocacy letter based on our budgetary needs, because I know that's when the administration will start doing their budget hearings and things of that, the defense rounds. Is there anything else you feel like needs to go in that section? Okay. So then March is registering to testify at the budget hearings, sharing the advocacy letter with the community and parents and asking them to reach out to legislators, and then inviting legislators to the schools, which is something I feel like we've done, but maybe we can do more, whether it's board meetings or school events. I don't know, do we invite legislators to come for school events at all?
Many times they offer to come on their own. In fact,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, either just did or recently.
Last year they did.
But I think this school year we had Assemblyman D'Angelo speaking to one of our AP classes.
Oh, okay, so he came
And
in the.
yeah, and now keeping in mind when they come, they're here on academic business.
Right.
So, we're very, very clear when we do invite them to come in for those purposes that, we want them to know, we're not gonna pull you in and say like, hey, where's our money? But, as much as we'd like to, when they come in that capacity, they're there for the students and the students only and the teachers. And they've been very generous and willing to come out and speak with our kids. So that has happened.
Okay.
Generally, and pretty much all the time, that's facilitated through Ms. Druss and, as our social studies supervisor and then the principals.
Okay,
But, you know, that is something that we've done and we are very appreciative when that happens.
all right. And I know we had them here, I think it was last July. I would love it if, you know, we didn't do it this year, but if we can, even if it's not all of our legislators, like, or if they're not all here at the same time, having them come and speak with us about our district needs from a board perspective, in addition to, like you said, them getting to really see like what's happening in the schools, which isn't really something that we would be a part of, I think is important. You know, I think there were certain things that they learned last year that they may not have known, and that can, you know, that can happen. So, whether it's in the spring or some other point during the year, I think that's always good. So then April, I said, continue advocacy on budget priorities, follow up with the legislators. I felt like this is something that we need to do better, coordinating with neighboring districts, on shared legislative acts. So we've talked about this with funding, especially a lot, but I think there's other things that we can, you know, network with, whether it's through school board association or just our own research, to see where we can sort of, we have aligned interests to help us advocate, with, you know, there's a strengths and numbers thing there. And then the other thing for April, which this came not from me, but like a sample advocacy, is apparently it's Student Advocacy Month in April. So sort of just sharing from a student perspective, how someone can advocate, whether it's like not necessarily for our district for funding, but just advocacy in general.
That the school board has that school board's connection. Can we
Right.
advocate for ourselves on that as school board members and see what other districts will answer us?
Yeah, so,
That's one way we could do it through NJSBA's.
right, so like the message board.
Right.
Yeah, and saying like, we are struggling with this.
Right.
Is there any other district struggling with the same
And
thing?
how are you handling it? Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be good. I would read them every so often,
Mhm.
and there are some good answers from districts around, so.
Yeah. Okay. May and June tracked legislative movement on the budget and monitored the final budget negotiations. Then there was a launch advocacy action alerts, which Mr. Raldo, I feel like you sort of kind of did this past year, and maybe before, email and social media for urgent calls. So if there's something we need help with from the community, and then thanking our legislators that are supporting us, which, you know, because it's right around that time where if we got additional money, we find out. And then July, August, it's, you know, a little bit calmer. So sort of reviewing all the bills that were signed into law over the last session, and then scheduling informal summer chats with legislators because they're not as busy during that time, and really neither are we. Then September, October, it mentions creating a back to school night advocacy newsletter. Even if it's not like a full newsletter, I feel like maybe for back to school night, sort of sharing with parents, like, I guess, what we're doing for advocacy, how they can help, and providing that to them. Because a lot of parents, like, I wasn't really aware when I was a first grade, second grade parent of the funding side of these things, right? I mean, not that everyone has to be like as deep into it as we are board members, but just for their own knowledge.
I also wonder when can we start thinking about, or if you think it's even appropriate, leveraging the parent groups in the community. You know, I know that the MEF is up and running again. Seems like they're back in swing of things with significant response to what their efforts have been. It's a powerful block. I know that they've recently constructed pretty hefty database. Now that we have a clear vision, we have a website that people can go to for resources from, like we mentioned last meeting. It'd be great to now start indoctrinating some of these well-organized parent groups to help us with these advocacy.
Right, so maybe like sort of a meeting with reps from there, and then maybe.
How do
from our
we
parent groups,
operationalize that?
And sort of sharing, that's, yeah, I like that,
And not just, I mean, all the groups,
Right.
clubs and parent groups and things like that.
right, because I mean, everyone benefits from whatever we end up
I
getting.
think
so.
it may not agree on much, but
Right.
I think we all can agree on that we need more money.
Yeah. I like it. Meeting with local civics groups or senior centers to build support. I think we sort of do that when, like, we've done it when there was a referendum and things like that, but I wonder if we can do it in a less urgent response, more like general sense of like what they can possibly do to help during the year. Like, we're doing Monroe News now, so like they're getting information about the school district, but I wonder if it's worth reaching out to some of these groups about helping with our advocacy efforts as well, sort of similar to what you just said with the parent groups, like some of the groups that aren't that.
Yeah,
that
Monroe
just
News
benefit.
Tribune is great to celebrate,
Mhm.
but it's tough to create actionable because it's quarterly. I know that, the local community has a digital newsletter, but
Mhm.
anything, I think, leveraging the local community, leveraging the municipality is always gonna help us because they just have farther outreach.
And even the senior center, I
Mhm.
told you how many times they have a great website
Mhm.
and, they contact quite a few people.
Yeah,
I think the last time we went to the meeting, they had 900 people sign up in like 1 or 2 months that came into the town. So I mean, there are new people that you can get after and you don't know what walks of life they've come from that can help you. But even, there was somebody, my neighbor is a writer for the Rossmore News, and I sent an email to Zach. And she wants to take specific issues in the school district that might be helping the Rossmore people. And I think the newsletter is put all through one place, isn't it? All of them go through that, is it?
so it used to be like the Princeton.
Yeah,
editorial thing. I think it recently just changed,
It-
and
yeah.
now it's including more of the senior communities,
Right,
but it's not the same.
No, but they include a lot, they're all printed from the one
Right.
source. And, she was very nice to tell me that she was a former journalist and that whatever Mr. Moraldo or any of us could give her, she would put that in there, because she thinks that all people, all seniors should be more informed about the district, what's
Yeah.
going on in the district.
Right. One thing I know other towns have, we don't, which I wish we did, is like, they have like the patch, like I know East Brunswick has it and things where it's almost like that online newspaper for the town. And, I've seen things about the Board of Education for East Brunswick, let's
They
say.
used to have something, that came out like every week.
Right.
They were very pressed used to cover us.
Well, Monroe not that quarterly one.
No, it is quarterly. Monroe News is quarterly.
Maybe.
Yeah, there was one like that came out, they used to cover like sports, but like the games were like 2 weeks old by the time.
Yeah.
Oh, like the
The-
home news. They just-
Yeah.
Things 2 weeks ago.
Monroe News has given us, has graciously
Yes.
awarded us 2 full pages. in
Yeah.
their
Oh, so that's
quarterly.
great then. We should do it.
It
Yeah, we
was,
have-
it was in
yeah.
the last edition.
I think it was,
Yeah, I saw
that
that.
in June, right?
Yeah, so that one just dropped, I think a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And, I was informed that is their last publication for the year.
Mhm.
So my guess is that they'll probably be looking around January, February for their next one.
Okay, but there's no like patch type news, like online news presence that you know of for our town, right? Like,
I feel like if there was, we would, there might be something.
Can we start one?
I don't think we can start it.
We-
Do it in your free time.
I'm just saying, is it something that can be put together? I mean, it sounds like a great idea.
Well, I like the idea of just maybe taking all the work we're already doing and combining it. So
Yeah.
we can get assists from Rossmore, and then we've got the
Right.
Monroe News. We have a journalism class here, and if you've noticed, the last 3 articles that we published,
Yeah.
2 were by a student, 1 was by a teacher
Mhm.
in the Monroe News.
And maybe invite Carol to come and speak to your journalism class.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Get the seniors more involved in some of your classes that they've been out and retired from.
absolutely. And I don't think, we would never have an issue providing content.
Right.
It's just,
No, I
it's
think
just
that-
based on access.
Right, yeah. I think we could, there's nothing that says we can't do anything.
The only other thing though is when it comes to that, like for advocacy, we do walk a tough line between what our role is as a school. Now, obviously, as a Board of Education and as a administrative team, advocacy is a big part of our job.
Mhm.
We just want to probably be a little careful when we get the teachers and the students involved
Right.
in those efforts.
Yeah,
So, but obviously, we keep those things in mind at all times.
right.
No, You're pretty good at that. You both are very good at that.
Just don't want to be accused of anything.
Yeah,
No, and we don't want to put you in that position, but both of you are very good at advocating for the district and for yourselves and what's necessary to be put in places.
I did see, actually, I think it was Dan Harris, I think it was Woodbridge, where they had like a monthly column for the community from like the Board of Education president or things like that, in their, the community, newsletters. So for our town, because we're a different makeup, I
Yeah.
wonder if, when you speak to Carol, I think you said, or speak someone from the newsletters,
That works on our newspaper,
Um,
yes.
because they're sort of all associated, I think it's fine for us to share multiple things, of which advocacy is, one of the things we can highlight when it's an appropriate time during the year. But just sort of like a monthly update kind of from the board with like facts, like, or even just link to find out how you can help advocate for our school district, go here.
That's what
And
she
you
wanted,
can
that's what
advocate
she wanted.
politically.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what Carol wanted when she called me, and I referred her to Mr. Morale, because he would have more accurate facts,
right,
especially she did when she was a journalist.
right.
And Linda Bazowski and her were best friends.
Mhm.
So Linda was very precise in what she published,
Right.
and I know Carol is too, so I referred her to Mr. Morale.
Yep, I have it.
I actually mentioned the Apple Garth building, which I think a lot of people drive by here. And most of the seniors would like to know, what's going on, because they don't.
Yeah.
So, and then like you said, advocacy at a certain time of year, I think that would be great for all that.
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to see it in my newspapers.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's a terrific lead, thank you.
And then, just the last part of it, is November and December. Sort of what we're talking about, submitting district funding priorities to the legislators, and it's ahead of the budget cycle. Thanking everybody for their support, and then also resolutions, which they have the resolution, the delegate assembly twice a year, but sort of just talking about what possible resolutions as a board, if we wanted to put together for that, or if we wanted to do resolutions for our legislators, talking about possible things for that. Anything else you guys feel like needs to be on there? Anything that's missing? All right.
I
Okay,
don't have to do a board call.
right, well, we're not even, there's more.
I know. I'm just reminding you.
I think I want to skip over, if that's okay, to the calendar and the website, because I know we sort of said we were gonna share that. And then if we have time, we can come back to the advocacy letter, but I feel like we went pretty in depth with that the last meeting, so I'm okay if you wanna skip that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very simple. So every individual school website has a calendar, right? And there's a district calendar as well, but what the committee had asked last time is how is there a way for a parent to query their calendar to make sure that they're getting the information they want and not overloading their depending on what you have. So on each website, there's a downloadable file that if you click on it, will integrate with your calendar system, whatever you're using your phone. Now, this is where I'm gonna stop, because I don't know, again, I barely can use my own. But it's set up in a way so the user can decide which calendars are displayed on their phone at the given time. It's like if you share a phone like with an iCloud with your family members. I don't need to see my wife's work schedule all day long, she doesn't see mine, but I do like to know what we have to bring our kids at 4 o'clock. So you can toggle middle league, high school, or middle school on within your phone. If you like, if you've got kids in multiple buildings, or you could just download one calendar you'd like, or we could download all of them. What I would advise parents to do, and then what we would do next time, is have parents, maybe come back to school and I explain this, is that parents should download the calendars they want, and then within their iOS settings or Android settings, they can activate those specific school calendars within their phone. That said, and I think I know what you're gonna ask, you're still at the mercy of, maybe not, what the district enters into that calendar, and, there's, calendars are subject to change in real time, and that can be problematic to where if something's entered in September, like for a 6:30 start, and then the principal sends out an update, hey, we're moving it to 7, now this doesn't happen very often, sometimes that may not push in real time, so there's advice to more. Yes.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a calendar that shows the end of the marking period for each school. Because it seems like, I never know when it is unless I ask the teacher. And, I get an email from the teacher telling me when the marking period ends. I feel like it's somewhere on the district website. It's not obvious to me where where it is. I mean, I'd love it if it was on the main calendar. But I know that each school has different marking periods, so is there a way that we can get it like more easily accessible?
I think we can touch base. I think that would be appropriate for the building-based calendar, because we have a trimester in the primary grade.
Yes.
We have marking periods at the elementary level, and we have marking periods at the middle and high school.
Yes.
So the dates are slightly adjusted based on AV days and
Oh,
adjusting the AV day
Okay.
piece. It doesn't come into play at the elementary level, right? And then at the primary level, again, we're on trimester. So it would be appropriate in terms of its location to be on a building-based piece. So that way, if you're in Mill Lake, you download the Mill Lake calendar, you have the events, but you also have the marking period piece.
So-
If it's a middle school, the middle school piece would sync up with whatever their marking period piece is. Generally, the middle school and high school are pretty
That's what I
close,
was
if
gonna
not
ask,
exactly
right
the
now.
same. Pretty close, they're not exactly.
District website, like, could I go someplace, okay, oh, so it's something that you actually have to ask your teacher? or-
Yeah, I'm not aware that it's not on the district calendar, that's on the home, like on the calendar page.
Yeah.
We have some of the general, this is the general testing window and things like that.
You know, it would be nice to have it on the back to school night for each building, because each building, has its own back to
And
school
it-
night, it would be nice to have
It is also something that's subject to change based on if we have a
some days.
snow day or some other cancellation, everything
Yeah.
kind of has ripple effects, and it is another dynamic piece, which is probably why it's not published in our school calendar and things like that, because there's usually a delay in updating that as opposed to a real time.
Maybe just have it posted with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I taught in Rahway, they had the dates, and then granted, we would have them listed like K to 6, 7, or K to 5, 7 to 12. Now, if middle school and high school are different, then maybe we're getting into too much difference, but, just sort of like a little box on the calendar, like marking period 1 ends this day, and then, like you sort of said, with like an asterisk, subject to change based on inclement weather, just because like, I know, I've seen in the parent groups all the time, like, what day is the marking period ended, where can I find this, and like, I know for me as a high school parent, I was able to log into my daughter's Schoology, go to the counseling page, look at their marking period 1 newsletter and
I was
find the
gonna say,
date.
yeah.
But that's a lie.
A lot of people like announce it, but what I could do is, when I send out, every week I send out, like, I ask the principal secretaries for like content for social media. I could ask how feasible it would be to just put an approximate, tentative end of the marking period trimester date on their local calendars, so that at least you could have a reference point. I don't think that that's unreasonable.
I mean, they are what they are right now. They change when there's an adjustment to the calendar for unforeseen circumstances. So,
Right. I guess what's good with that, it being on like the living calendar is if it changes, it can be updated as opposed to like people who are printing out that annual calendar where we can make those changes, but it's harder to do. I think just my other question, when you mentioned the toggling, because like I had gone in and put the district calendar on there for myself, and then like I had done the Mill Lake calendar. But for me, it wasn't toggling. I had to go onto like each school's homepage and then download each
Yes.
file.
You have to do that, so
Okay.
you would have to go, for your state, you'd have to go Mill Lake, I guess one, right? Or no,
Yeah.
Mill Lake, high school.
Yeah.
And you would have to add those manually. So right now, and it even kind of lends itself to like the district calendar itself. When you go on the district website, like I'm on the homepage right now,
Mhm.
and I see like tomorrow, you have the Mill Lake Week of Respect.
Right.
You have the marching band competition. But, if you were to go on to, that's a safe bet for like big picture items in the district. But if you were to go on to the individual schools' websites, you may find a little bit more specific information. And I would advise users to have both. And just so you don't miss anything, but
And there's no way with like the new website, I think we actually sort of talked about this last year, where it's all on that one calendar, but then people sort of what you had said can opt into certain things. They have to go to each place.
yeah,
and Get it
so
from there.
we talked about how that might look at like a user interface.
Mhm.
And like, for example, I'm looking right now and I could have an entire day dedicated to Wednesday, October 15th.
Mhm.
And probably string all the way down the page, so it does get cluttered.
Mhm.
I don't think we figured out exactly what would warrant to be pushed to the district calendar, because certain elements still are and certain elements aren't.
Mhm.
But I think that that's something we could talk about maybe at a leadership team meeting, collect feedback from the principals on what they're hearing from staff
Mhm.
and their parents to see if there's any way we could tighten up maybe the way that the dates are presented. But for now, I would advise just stay local on your school websites, because I know those secretaries are very active in making sure those calendars are up to date.
The other thing was athletics. They have their own calendar too,
That's why I do a
right?
conference.
Okay.
And, and then I want to speak for Mr. Berendiga, but my understanding is that each conference has an agreement of what they're going to be using for their schedule. And, just like we followed for film exchange. And we're kind of subject to that, but that link is readily accessible on in high school.
Okay.
And those do change regularly, those
Right.
are that section.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So any other questions regarding website? Gail, did you want to give a recap from the September school board's meeting? Because I was online, but I know you were there in person
Oh, I
for Middlesex
gave
County.
Carmen all my notes. Yeah, well, we had two lawyers that evening, and one from Bush and Bush and one from the attorney group for South Plainfield. And they spoke about, oh gosh, she's got my stuff.
Oh, there was the cell phone bill.
The
There
cell
was
phone
the
policy.
public notice.
The,
Right.
the,
Public notices, I think was one.
one was on parental conduct at
At
all
sporting
kind of
events.
sporting-
Yeah.
Sporting events was another one. And I asked Mr. Barandiga in curriculum tonight if we had that form given to all the parents, because they had said that evening that if NJSIAA came to the sporting event and that form with the parent signed for consent, spectator conduct, that's what it was. If it wasn't there, they could actually stop the event right where it was and would forfeit. So I wanted to make sure that we had it, because I didn't want to,
Yeah.
somebody had asked that night about, well, what if you don't have, like, some schools are not in their home schools now, and then some schools run, cross-country, like through the streets or through parks. Does that qualify you if your cross-country run? And they said, yes, that cross-country coach has to have the paperwork on them. And if they come to the cross-country site, if it's in a park or whatever, it must be shown. So I wanted to make sure that he knew that, and he said, yes, everybody had that. That was one. And then the cell phone usage is a big one. And I know I gave it to Carmen. She's sitting back there. Do you want me to go get it?
No, it's okay. I mean, we don't have to go into detail. I just feel like a brief
Yeah.
overview of
And
what
the other
was
one was, can I remember the
the
name?
public notices, right? It was like public access of, like you no longer have to advertise in certain spots. I think that was on
No,
there.
you were speaking to the
No.
notification for an IEP meeting to special education parents.
Right,
No.
that's what I had brought up from the legislative meeting.
From the legislative, but from the Middlesex County one, it was those two and.
It's all right. It's not,
Oh,
now,
sorry.
no, it's okay.
I was having that, I cannot remember, and I just gave all my notes and stuff to her for policy. So,
All right, but yeah, it was, I think we need some more Monroe representation at these
well, I
meetings.
was the only one from Monroe there,
I was online.
and you were online. And, they try to get 100%, people going to attend school board convention. And Middlesex County has 4 districts, and I'm sorry to say, yours will here. One is where my son is the vice principal of Highland Park, and 2 others that do not have anybody registered to go. So they were emphasizing, please emphasize to your school districts, at least send one person down, so Middlesex County could get 100% achievement of sending people down. So, they emphasized that night. The lawyers were excellent. They answered all the questions, especially about the cell phone usage.
Yeah.
That was, 3 or 4 different ways, and the most, I think one was, the one that they liked the most was, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, they should be put away.
Right, bell to bell.
Bell to bell, thank you, I knew I was something to something. And, but of course, I mentioned, well, you're telling us we have to have this mandated thing for cell phones. And they were saying that they can put them in a plastic container and all this other stuff. I mean, now with, I don't want to say the bad word, with the sickness that we had 5 years ago, but if a kid puts their phone in next to another kid's phone, you don't know. So the individual pound system seems to be the most reasonable, but it's very expensive.
Right.
And the state's telling you that you have to do it, but there's no inkling, which I mentioned that night, was state mandate, state does not pay. And that has been forever. So I know Senator Gopal had mentioned that he would not let anything go past him that was mandated that we would have to pay for.
Right.
So that is a big money issue. I know, I think I mentioned to Dr. Lehman, and you said some classrooms actually do it here in Monroe, but it's not, universal to the district, correct?
Well, they have access to putting them in a pouch,
Right,
pouch type system, but the majority of the students, specifically in the high school, the expectation is they put them away.
Right.
Away during the class time.
Yeah.
And that's our process right now.
I was doing an observation the other day, right in here. And they had the pouch set up there. And I saw kids voluntarily put the phones in the pouch because they didn't trust themselves.
Wow, good for them.
But, so,
Rub off.
not to get into a career, but it really is interesting to see the teachers manage it as a function of classroom management. And, sometimes the students will have the phones in the pouches, and sometimes they stay in the bag, but really the decision almost happens organically sometimes, depending on what's going on in the classroom. And I applaud the high school for their approach and how they've been handling it. Because they've been letting the teachers really have a strong autonomy over how they enforce it.
what they also mentioned was certain students need to keep their phone on them if they need to track medication time.
My wife delivers insulin from herself.
Yeah.
So she.
So, yeah, so that was one big thing, issue they brought up, where they could keep it with them. Most of the parents complained that if there was an issue, how was I supposed to get my child? Well,
Yeah.
you call the school and we'll get a hold of your
Right, like
child.
what happened 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I was, nobody knew where I was, couldn't tell you how many years ago. But, there was a lot of issues, but that bell-to-bell seemed to be the
Yeah.
most, effective one that everybody had considered. Yeah.
I pulled up the presentation, so it
Okay.
mentioned the commission report, because that had come out, I think, like that day or the day
Right,
before.
yes, yes.
So there were 20 different recommendations on there, including, like you said, the bell-to-bell ban, passing laws to control access and information for social media,
Yes.
digital citizenship, media awareness, and curricular modifications, and then sort of like you said, the healthcare monitoring concern. And then the other thing that they mentioned, the third topic was student opt-outs.
Oh, that's right. Student opt-out.
So it mentioned that they're bracing for a wave of parents seeking
Yes.
opt-outs after a Supreme Court ruling regarding the First Amendment religious freedom clause.
Right.
So,
That was a big one because they had stated in the PowerPoint that it's up to the district. If a child opted out of a class, or the parent had the child opt out of the class, it's up to the district to offer alternatives. And at least 3 alternatives was what was suggested, but it would be up to the district. 3 alternatives for that student to go to. So either a study hall, or maybe participate in another class, maybe, I don't know, something more minute. And that was a big, because it was opt-outs a few years back for, the special, was it the sex ed classes? I think-
yeah,
Yes.
the health.
Health, yes. And, some of the districts asked the parents to opt out in the beginning. So instead of starting it, so they recommended that the parents look at all the curriculum. This is what they said, for the year, so that they can, in the beginning of September, have their child opt out of what they wanted them to be opt out of.
Mhm.
So that was a big thing, yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's good.
Kate, I appreciate
Oh,
it.
no problem. Really quick, so the last thing I want to talk about, and we'll take 2 minutes, is district board goals. So I know generally our board goal from this committee has been advocacy related, and I think that's a very important part of this committee. So if we want to sort of continue that same goal, it's fine. I just would love to find a way to make it more of a SMART goal where we're able to measure our success on it. The other thing I thought of, but this isn't necessarily a goal for this committee, is that board certification that we spoke
Well,
about.
I have the info on
I think that's a good board goal, but that's right from our committee. Do you guys agree, like advocacy should still be our goal as
it. Yes.
and should we put certain things we want to advocate for in that goal, or just increasing our advocacy efforts, I guess?
I would say increase the effort, because you did mention that in the CAC. That would combine both the community members and this committee to work maybe together on it.
Right, so maybe sort of taking what I know Ms. Farley sort of said at the beginning, starting to branch out our advocacy efforts involving other groups in our town. Would be a good way to sort of not make it the same example from
Right.
last year, but still have advocacy as our So I'll write something up and you want it to me for next week?
Well, yeah, we're gonna discuss it in open,
Mhm.
session at the, next week's meeting.
Right.
I mean, we're gonna get one, hopefully goal from each committee,
Mhm.
and then we'll narrow it down when we discuss it to, I would say, we normally do 4 or 5 goals
Yeah.
a year.
All right, sounds good. Okay. All right, thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Ratner.